students. As you have covered the gross features and microscopic structures of eye and adnexa, so now we will study its development. So the objectives of today's lectures are, so by the end of this lecture, you should be able to tell the sources of germ layers from which the eye and adnexa are derived. You know that there are three primary germ layers, that is the endoderm, ectoderm and mesoderm. So we will see from where the eye and adnexa are being derived, from which germ layers. Number two learning objective is that you should know the molecular regulation of the eye development, that how the eye development is regulated. Next is the week. You should be able to tell the week from which the development of eye starts and it continues. Then you should be able to describe the development of the optic primordia and its further differentiation into adult derivatives. Then in the last, you should be able to give brief account of development of retina and also the ciliary body and the iris. Study a little bit of gross anatomy, gross structure of the eyeball, that it consists of three coats. The inner coat is the neuronal coat, that is retina. Then the middle one is the vascular coat, choroid, and outer one, the fibrous coat, sclera, and in the front, the transparent one, the cornea. And inner to this, in the interior of the eyeball, this is the vitreous body, and this is the lens, which is connected to the ciliary body. And anterior to the lens lies the edges of the iris, which will make the gap here known as pupil. And then in front of the iris is the anterior chamber of eye, and posterior to the iris is the posterior chamber of eye. Also, the eye adnexa, eyelids, conjunctiva, which is covering the surface of the eye ball, extraocular muscles, which helps in movements of eyeball, and lacrimal apparatus, which secretes secretions that keep the eye moist. So eyeball and adnexa, they are derived from four sources. Number one is the neuroectoderm, which is derived from the ectoderm, then the surface ectoderm itself, and then the neural crust cells. You know, the neural crust cells, they are also derivatives of neuroectoderm, and then the mesoderm. So from ectoderm and basically from the ectoderm and mesoderm, the eyeball and adnexa are derived, and from surface ectoderm, the neuroectoderm and the neural crust cells, they also contribute in formation of the eyeball and adnexa. So in molecular regulation of development of eye, the key regulatory gene is PAX6. Initially, this PAX6 transcription factor is expressed in the anterior neural region, ridge of the neural plate, before the neurulation begins. And this PAX6 establishes a single eye field that later separates into two optic primordia. Now, signal for separation of this field is sonic hedgehog expressed in the precaudal plate. Now, this sonic hedgehog upregulates the PAX2 expression in the optic stalk while downregulating PAX6, restricting this gene's expression to the optic cup and lens. So, this is how the molecular regulation of the development of eye occurs. So the eyes start developing in the middle of the fourth week till the middle of the eighth week. Now this is the time when most of the structures they develop, but some structures continue to develop till birth, but also the lens it continues to develop for life. The optic primordia or eye primordium appear as pair of shallow grooves called the optic sulci. One optic sulcus is located on each side, each lateral surface of the developing forebrain. So this is the developing forebrain, and in this region here the optic sulcus is located on each lateral side of the developing forebrain. After the closure of the anterior neuropore, the optic sulci evaginate and form outpocketings of the forebrain, which are called optic vesicle. So here you can see this is the upper part of the forebrain. Here the upper part of the this is the upper part of the brain, developing brain, that is the forebrain, and optic vesicle, optic sulci, it develops here. So here you can see optic sulci or groove developing from the forebrain part of the developing brain. Now these sulci, they are forming outpocketings here, which are known as optic vesicles. The cavity of each optic vesicle is continuous with that of the forebrain. Here you can see the cavity of optic vesicle is continuous with the cavity of the forebrain. Each optic vesicle grows laterally into the adjacent mesoderm and soon becomes surrounded by sheath of mesenchyme, which is partly derived from the neural crust cells. As each optic vesicle grows laterally, its distal end becomes expanded, whereas its proximal end, which connects it to the forebrain, becomes constricted to form the hollow optic stalk. So here you can see its proximal end, it is constricting and forming the optic stalk, and this is the distal end which is expanding. By the end of fourth week, the distal end of each optic vesicle reaches the surface ectoderm. So this is the surface ectoderm, and it is reaching at the end of fourth week, it is reaching the surface ectoderm and comes to lie almost in contact with it. The neuroectoderm of the optic vesicle induces the surface ectoderm to become thickened to form the lens placard. So here is the lens placard. So the placard, the primordium of the lens, it is induced by this optic vesicle, this neuroectoderm of the optic vesicle. In the middle of the fifth week, each optic vesicle invaginates to form a double-layered cup called the optic cup. So here you can see the formation of optic cup. This vesicle is forming cup-shaped structure which is known as optic cup. You can see the formation of the optic sulcus. Here, optic sulcus is forming from the lateral wall of the developing forebrain, and this optic sulcus now is evaginating and forming the optic vesicle and the optic stalk. This narrow proximal part will form the optic stalk, and the distal expanded part will form the optic vesicle. Now the optic cup and now two structures are formed from this activity, the optic cup and the lens vesicle. Now, as you know, the developing eye appears in the 22nd day of development of embryo as a pair of shallow grooves on each side of the forebrain. Now with the closure of the neural tube, these grooves forms outpocketings of the forebrain. These are the optic vesicles. The optic vesicle begins to invaginate and it forms a double-walled optic cup. Now this optic cup has got an inner layer and an outer layer. Initially, these two layers, they are separated by by a lumen. This is known as intraretinal space. So this was the optic stalk and optic vesicle. Then due to invagination of the optic vesicle, this optic vesicle, it forms double shaped cup structure. This is known as optic cup shaped structure. So this cup shaped structure has an inner layer and an outer layer. This is the inner layer and this is the outer layer. So this is the optic cup and this is the optic stalk. Optic vesicle, it induces changes in the surface ectoderm to form the lens vesicle. Here you can see this is the optic vesicle. When this is formed, when this optic vesicle formed, it induces changes in the surface ectoderm and thickens it. And the cells begins to divide and thicken. This thickened part is known as the lens placode. So this is the primordium for the formation of lens. Now here a pit appears in this lens placode and this lens placode invaginates and then detach from the surface ectoderm, forming the lens vesicle. So this is the lens vesicle from which the lens arises, and this is the cup-shaped optic cup from which the retina arises. And all round this optic cup, and here all round this optic cup lies the mesoderm. So this is the surface ectoderm. This is derived from the neuroectoderm, and all round this structure lies the mesoderm. So the neuroectoderm of the prosencephalon, that is from diencephalon region, it gives rise to optic grooves. Then they form the optic vesicles, and vesicles are converted into optic cups. The adult derivative of optic cups are the retina, epithelium of the retina, that is the optic neural part of the retina, optic part of the retina where neurons are present, as well as the epithelium of the ciliary body and the iris. Epithelium of the ciliary body and iris and the optic nerve. So these are the derivatives of the optic cup. So this is the optic cup and this is the optic stalk. So this is the cut section. You can see here the two layers of the optic cup. They are separated by each other through intraretinal space. And this optic cup is surrounded by the mesenchyme. Here you can see this is the surface ectoderm, this is the developing lens, and this is the mesenchyme surrounding the optic cup. Now, a linear groove called choroid fissure develop on the ventral, that is inferior surface of the optic cup and optic stalk. Here you can see the edges of the optic cup do not meet anteriorly and there is a fissure known as choroid fissure. The choroid fissure, also known as retinal fissure or optic fissure, contains vascular mesenchyme. So here we have mesenchyme in which develops the hyaloid artery. You can see here hyaloid artery developing in the mesenchyme present in the choroid fissure. The hyaloid artery, a branch of ophthalmic artery, supplies the inner layer of the optic cup and the developing lens. Here you can see the inner layer and the developing lens. It is supplying the inner layer and the developing lens. The mesenchyme within the optic cup. So this hyaloid artery is supplying three structures, that is the lens, the inner layer of the retina and the mesenchyme, which is present in between these two structures. During the seventh week, the edges of the optic fissure fuse with each other. Now at seventh week, the edges of the choroid fissure, they start fusing with each other. So as a result, the mouth of the optic cup becomes round, opening that will become the pupil of the eye in the later development. So this is how the pupil is formed. Enclosure of the optic fissure converts the optic stalk into the optic nerve, and hyaloid artery becomes enclosed within the optic nerve. Now we will see it next in the development of retina and then optic nerve, that how this hyaloid artery, it becomes enclosed within the optic nerve. So development of retina, the outer layer, this is the optic cup and this is the inner layer of the optic cup and this is the outer layer of the optic cup. And the space between these two layers are the intraretinal space. The outer layer of the optic cup, which is characterized by small pigment granules, is known as pigmented layer of the retina. And development of the inner layer of the optic cup is more complicated. So the outer layer, it develops into the pigment layer of the retina. The inner layer will give rise to all the neural parts of the retina. The posterior 4/5 of the retina, posterior 4/5 of the retina, 4/5, posterior 4/5 of retina, the pars optica retina, the pars optica retina contains cells bordering the intraretinal space. So this is the part which is bordering the intraretinal space, and that differentiates into light receptive elements, rods and cones. Adjacent to this proprioceptive layer is the mental layer, which as in brain give rise to neurons and supporting cells, including the outer nuclear layer, inner nuclear layer and a ganglion cell layer. On the surface is a fibrous layer that contains axons of the nerve cells of the deeper layers. Nerve fibers in the zone coverage towards the optic stalk, which develops into the optic nerve. So here you can see the nerve fibers, they are converging towards the optic stalk and forming the optic nerve fibers. Hence, light impulses pass through most layers of the retina before they reach the rods and cones. So, light is coming from here and it is passing from most of the layers to reach the rods and cones. The anterior fifth of the inner layer, the pars ceca retina, remains one cell thick and it later divides into pars iridica retina, which forms the inner layer of the iris, and pars ciliaris retina, which participates in the formation of ciliary body. Now this is the pigment epithelium and this is the pigmented retina, and this whole layer is the neuronal retina, and this is more thick as compared to the pigment retina. And at the end of 6th week, this layer begins to produce neuroblasts, which form two cellular layers, an inner neuroblastic layer and an outer neuroblastic layer. So this is the inner neuroblastic layer and then the outer neuroblastic layer. In addition, two membranes develop to line the two surfaces of the neural retina. An external limiting membrane which becomes interposed between the pigment epithelium and the neural retina, and an internal limiting membrane that covers the internal surface of the neuronal retina. Here, the rods and cones cells of the neuronal retina are derived from the outer neuroblastic layer. So rods and cones are derived from the rods and cones. They are derived from the outer neuroblastic layer. The inner neuroblastic layer shown here, the inner neuroblastic layer, you can see this is the outer neuroblastic layer and this is the inner neuroblastic layer. This will appear after the 6 weeks, and the inner neuroblastic layer will give rise to the bipolar cells, the ganglion cells, and the association neurons and supporting cells of the retina. The axons of the ganglionic cells emerge onto the inner surface of the retina and converge towards the optic stalk. Cell innermost neuroblastic layer will form the ganglion cells and their axons will retina, optic nerve seen here. The axons of the ganglionic cells emerge onto the outer inner surface of the retina and converge towards the optic stalk. These axons form the nerve fibers of the retina. All layers of the definitive retina become distinct during the 5th month of development. Now it is noted that the retinal pigment epithelium, it is firmly adherent here to the choroid layer of the eye, but its attachment to the neuronal retina is not strong. Consequently, during postnatal life, the neuronal retina may detach from the pigment epithelium as a result of injury, for example, a blow on the eye, or disease, for example, in diabetes mellitus. This condition, called detachment of retina, results in impairment of vision. Here is the two layers of the optic cup, and they are differentiating. Here you can see the intraretinal space reduces almost to nil, and the neuronal layer, it fixes with this pigmented layer, and the nerve fibers from the ganglion cells, they emerge and fill in the space between the choroid fissure, and then ultimately this choroid fissure closes, enclosing the nerve fibers and the hyaloid artery, which later in life forms the central artery of retina. The hyaloid artery degenerates distally, but its proximal part retains and it forms the central artery of. Myelination of optic nerve fibers is incomplete at birth. After the eyes have been exposed to light for approximately 10 weeks, myelination is complete, but the process normally stops short of the optic disc, where the optic nerve enters the eyeball. Now, normal newborn infants can see, but not too well, and they respond to changes in illumination and are able to fixate points of contrast. Visual acuity has been estimated to be in the range of 20 by 400. At 2 weeks of age, the infants show a more sustained interest in large objects. Congenital coloboma, presence of a cleft in the iris or ciliary body or retina. It is known as coloboma. This anomaly results from defective closure of the choroid fissure. Most commonly, the defect is restricted to the inferior part of the iris only, coloboma iritis. Colobomas may be caused by genetic or environmental influences. Iris. Our idea. So this condition is characterized by absence of iris and it may be unilateral or bilateral. You can see here this is the normal eye and this whole structure is this whole structure inside is the iris and these are the edges of the iris which are forming the pupil. Now here you can see the iris is absent and the pupil is very large. So anaridia may be isolated, it may be an isolated anomaly or may occur as a part of Weger syndrome, which consists of Wilms tumors of kidney, anaridia, genitourinary anomalies, and mental retardation. Weger syndrome. So this can be anaridia can occur. It can be unilateral or bilateral. It can be isolated anomaly or it can occur as a part of Weger syndrome. So this is development of ciliary body. The pigment epithelium of ciliary body is derived from the outer layer of the optic cup. The inner layer of the optic cup differentiates into ciliary epithelium. So the outer the pigmented epithelium of the ciliary body is derived from the outer layer of the retina, outer layer of retina or outer layer of optic cup, and the inner layer of epithelium, ciliary epithelium, it is derived from the inner layer of the optic cup, inner layer of optic cup. The vascular stroma and the ciliary muscle, the smooth muscle of the ciliary body, they are derived from the mesenchyme surrounding the optic cup. As I have shown you before, the optic cup, it is surrounded by the optic cup is the ectodermal derivative, that is it is derived from the neuroectoderm, which in turn is derived from the surface ectoderm, and surrounding this optic cup lies the mesoderm here. So the mesodermal lining in this part will give rise to the ciliary muscles and the stroma. From optic cup and the optic stalk. These are the derivatives of the forebrain, that is neuroectoderm. Derivative of the optic stalk is the optic nerve, and derivative of the optic cup are the retina, dilator and sphincter pupillae, which are muscles of the iris, epithelium of the iris, and the epithelium of the ciliary body. So these are the derivatives of the optic cup.